The opinions and viewpoints expressed in .NET Rocks are not necessarily those of its sponsors, or of Microsoft Corporation, its partners, or employees. .NET Rocks is a production of Franklin's Net, which is solely responsible for its content. Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter. Get your mojo working and listen up. It's time for another stellar episode of .NET Rocks, the internet audio talk show for .NET developers with Carl Franklin and Rory Blythe. This is Jeff Maciolik here to announce show number 70, The Speakers Lounge, recorded live Thursday, July 1st. .NET Rocks is brought to you by Franklin's Net, training developers to work smarter and now offering hands-on VB.NET and ASP.NET classes remotely. Online at www.franklins.net. And by Data Dynamics, makers of ActiveReports.net. Simple, powerful, and cost-effective reporting for Windows Forms and ASP.NET web applications. Online at www.datadynamics.com. And by Dundas Chart. Advanced technology, advanced results. Online at www.tundaschart.com. Support is also provided by Code Magazine, Microsoft Technology's in-depth for IT managers and developers. Online at www.code-magazine.com. And now, the man with all the flavor of donuts and zero net carbs, Carl Franklin!
Hey. Jeff's getting better. I don't know what you think, Rory, but I think Jeff's getting really good at this announcing role that he's fallen into.
I love Jeff in the announcing role. I think he's really good.
Yeah, he is. He's got that radio voice, you know.
It's a nice, deep, sort of baritone-y, cool voice.
Yeah, unlike us, you know. We're just trying to
totally
find our way around here. So how you doing, my co-host, my partner in crime, Rory Blythe, out there in Portland? Yeah. How are you?
Well, after that intro, I'm doing pretty well.
The world wants to know how you're feeling.
Yeah, my brain has been getting adjusted to the antidepressants this week, which has been a totally fascinating up and down mental chemistry roller coaster ride. But today, I've actually felt pretty good. Although I do occasionally have to nail myself with some tranquilizers, like no kidding. For the most part, it's been pretty good, and I'm already starting to feel a little tiny bit better, and so I'm really positive about this stuff, and it's so nice to just feel a little bit better.
That's great.
So I'd say overall, I'm better. I actually posted today on my blog.
Oh wow!
So
I didn't see that. Cool.
Yeah, the first one since, well, I don't know, maybe like 20 days, 21 days or something.
Wow. Good job, man.
It's back. And,
I'm glad to know that science works. So. Let's hear it.
Well, they don't actually know why. All the literature that I read on these drugs, everybody just says, nobody really knows why this stuff works. We just took a pile of it, and we took a room full of monkeys, and we kind of stuck everything together, and, the results were pretty good. The monkeys seemed happy, so we put it in pill form, colored it purple, and gave it a cool name, put an ad for it on TV, and now you're taking it. So,
wow.
So I guess I'm glad that the advertising worked.
Yeah.
They got the right product to me.
That's good.
Yeah. So how are you doing?
I'm doing okay. Actually, this has been a fun week because I've been doing nothing but coding and sleeping and eating and showering. It's really all I've been doing all week. My
Divided evenly between those things?
Yeah. My oldest daughter's on a trip with her grandmother. My wife has been off work and bonding with my little daughter, and I've been basically just writing code, writing and sleeping. And actually been sleeping during the day, working at night. It's been great. I can't tell you how long it's been since I've done the all night, coding in total deprivation from everybody, just nobody around. And man, I just had so much fun this week. So doing that, working on Zeep Chat, getting a really good version. As it turns out, there's some people around here because Yahoo and AOL are getting out of the enterprise chat business. because they couldn't really sell it. They couldn't make enough money on it. That there's a sort of a hole in the market there. So there's some people actually who have been contacting me and looking for a solution. So,
wow.
So yeah, so it's been fun. It's not all just fun and games. And what else? Band was practicing this week. My band is kind of like, everybody asks me, oh, where do you play? Like we go out and we play The Twist and Johnny Be Good or whatever, 80s songs all night. But the band that I'm in now is the Franklin Brothers Band, and it's all originals. And we're all computer guys. My brother's Java programmer. My drummer is, a development manager, an insurance company. And my bass player is the network administrator at the Mohegan Sun Casino. So we're like, totally geekheads. So anyway, we all have jobs and we don't play out for a living. So we have the time. We've had like 2.5 years to get together a couple times a month or once a month and work on original tunes. And man, that's been a lot of fun.
Cool.
Yeah.
Nice.
So we got a couple of pieces of mail. This week. One of them was interesting. I mean, we're in over 55 countries all over the world, and people from all over the world listen to .NET Rocks, and that's really cool. But I got this email last week from Dmitry Malenko, and he says, "Hey, Carl, last week was the first show I've listened to live. It wasn't so easy. Show begins at 5 a.m. local time. At first, I was afraid it's not going to work on my dial-up line, but fortunately, it did pretty good. You sounded so upset when saying there was no emails for this week. I decided to drop you a note." Well, I wasn't upset, just a little surprised because, we had been having lots of email up to that point. Just to let you know that I and a couple of my colleagues here it's in the Ukraine, but Dnipropetrovsk, Dnipropetrovsk, Ukraine. Do not miss a single show. Yeah, that's true. You can add one more country to the list of .NET Rocks listeners. Last show was really great. All those flying cars sounding like jumping boots I've come across over the internet someday. My cheers to Rory. Keep up the good work, guys. Thank you. Best regards, Dmitry Malenko. Well, you can expect a serious .NET Rocks mug with mugs on it. Dmitry, thanks. And one more email from Dan, who says, "Hey, Carl and Rory, thanks for reading my X1 Gator somewhat obscene email on the air. My car ended up in a ditch on the way home when that came out of my Archos. My wife wasn't impressed, but she's a first-grade teacher and a bit more clean-cut. This might sound lame, but the things I think about in therapy, what do coders' wives do for a living? What kind of person does it take to be with a coder? Maybe you could do a mini cheesy poll in your class or on .NET Rocks. I don't know. Keep up the great work on .NET Rocks. I think Rory's current events is a great idea, too. Rory, if you think dog food smells good, wait till you try, smell Beggin' strips. I have a hard time explaining to the wife why we buy so many of these when we don't own a dog, and she knows our cats don't like them either. Also, grab a bag of beef jerky, give the jerky to a hungry bum, and then add the Beggin' strips to the bag. Your coworkers won't whisper behind your back unless they try to sneak a bit when you're in the can or something. Yum, yum. You guys rock. P.S. Get well soon, Rory. And, Dan, it's just because I know you're kidding that I'm laughing. But otherwise, I'd have you committed. Begging strips.
Well, no, some of these dog jerky treats do smell really good. Like, they smell really, really good. I actually know what he's talking about. There's a temptation to it that you don't want to discuss with people, but it's there.
Yeah, I guess they have to smell good. That's how the dogs don't buy them after all. People buy them. Right.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, now is the time in our show when we do a little segment we call the Google Weirdos, ladies and gentlemen.
Weirdos. Google Weirdos.
And if you want to understand what Google Weirdos is, go up to our website, www.franklins.net/.netrocks, and there's a link there. What is Google Weirdos if you absolutely have no clue? Because we're sick of explaining it, frankly.
Yeah.
So, what are the shouts outs for this week, Rory?
the shouts-outs for this week, actually for the month, because I don't think we've done Google Weirdos in a while. This is maybe been like 2 or 3 weeks. The shouts-outs are, I think I might have read this one before, but I liked it so much that I'm doing it again.
Okay.
Rory is the bubble boy of the .NET world. I love that one, because I kind of am.
Right, the boy in the bubble.
Next shouts out is Rory had to get my Google shout out from Mark Kenyon. So what's up, Mark Kenyon?
Hey.
Next one is Rory Blythe. How to get a date with Tim Ewald. You might start by asking his wife how she feels about it. Yeah, he is rather married and rather father-ish at the moment. Rory Blythe, are you gay? Of course not. Oh, Rory Blythe is my pet monkey. Gay, he goes out with a male rat. I don't know what that meant because grammatically it's just not set up in such a way that it lends itself to being understood. I just wanted to say that whoever you are, if you forward me your contact information, I can get you in touch with my neurologist. Next one is, Blythe, does this Google search work? Yes, it does. Next one is, I love giving you extra cheese, Rory. And that's not like really, really weird, but what creeps me out is I do go to a few different pizza joints around here. And
that may be what it is.
You just can't help but wonder, is it one of these people that I've kind of partially befriended who works at one of these pizza joints, and is it really because I've never noticed extra cheese. Is it like something else? Is there? I don't know what it's kind of creepy.
Could be cheese.
I'm really not saying anything. I don't know what it is.
Cheese in a metaphorical sense.
It's really sinister.
That could be evil.
That's the shouts outs. The Google Weirdos. We start with gay Mormon dentists. It's a very particular market there.
Yeah,
next one is lifting and carrying donkey.
Not a donkey.
Lift with your knees. Lift with your legs. Don't lift with your back. That's
Wait a minute. You know what's interesting about that is it's not a donkey. It's like donkey meat. Like lifting hamburger, lifting chicken.
I can see that. Yeah, I can see that.
Donkey.
Lifting donkey in general. Just not a donkey, but donkey. I understand. Yeah. Next one is girls lifting and carrying safety. I would say ask them first. That's going to be the safest way. You might just stick to the donkeys. Next one,
might as well.
Yeah, next one is C# steering wheel game. And I just wanted to mention that because it sounds so freaking boring.
Yeah, really. Steering wheel.
I
move it to the left,
like
you move it to the right.
Wheel, right? What else is there? You beep it a few times, honk, honk, I mean, that's
kind of a limited user
game.
Interface.
Right. You might add a driving aspect to that, or maybe the C# steering wheel / heater vent game or something. Climate control game. I don't know. Pretty boring.
Really?
So that's that. Next one is slave girls scrubbed with soap and spanked cartoons. People get so specific.
Really?
Why scrubbed with soap? What is so important about it that they be clean? Well, I don't know. I find sometimes the very, very particular nature of the request to be interesting, just on their own. Next one is getting attached to nannies, and I was thinking there's probably like a solvent or something that would actually take care of that. And then finally, the very last one is how to get a prostitute to pay me. Which is kind of cool. That wouldn't be a bad job.
Do some consulting. Tell her you can fix a computer.
Well, that's too clever, Carl. You know what he meant. So that is the Google Weirdos for the week.
Weirdos. Google Weirdos.
So, Rory, you've also been doing this segment, and I had no idea this was going to go on and on and on, but it's a very cool segment, and that means I got to write music for it. But I haven't done that yet. But this is the sort of the news of the week, and quite a few things have happened in the .NET blog sphere, I guess, in the news sphere this week. And what are some of those things?
Well, the first thing that I took a look at here, I actually went to this. I went to the Portland Nerd Dinner the other night, and I was talking to Scott Hanselman and Chris Sells, and I remember Project Looking Glass came up in conversation. And I've noticed that Project Looking Glass has been popping up more and more and more often in conversations that I've both had in person and that I found on the web. And for those of you who don't know, Project Looking Glass is described by Sun as a revolutionary evolution of today's desktop. And I just thought I'd kind of get people I think people should know about this, because if ever there were a fine example of all the worst things you could do to an operating system's UI and put them in one place, Project Looking Glass is it. I hate Project Looking Glass. I've been in arguments with people who seem to enjoy it.
So give us some examples. What are some of the things they do?
For example, Project Looking Glass is one of these pseudo 3D desktops that people are always talking about. It's like they think that to go to the next step, we have to add a dimension to the desktop, that this will somehow automatically make it more usable, right? If people can manipulate their windows using 3 dimensions rather than just 2, but it's kind of it's baloney. It's not really founded on any good
usability
thinking,
or anything,
really. Right, sure. So one thing you can do with Project Looking Glass, for example, is you're out there, you're surfing on a web page, you've got your Mozilla browser up, and you decide you want to make a note about the web page, so you click some widget somewhere, and it will turn the window around. You'll see the animation as the window turns around, and suddenly you have a notepad you can write on. Okay, well, that's kind of interesting, I guess, but it's still 2D.
Right.
It's just done in a 3D way.
Right.
Another thing you can do is you can angle your windows. You can rotate them on 3 axes. And sometimes this winds up, what's the point? You turn
what's the point? You turn it around, you can't see
translucent, and you read your web page backwards.
Ooh.
Cool parlor trick, I guess, but it would be very irritating for me as a user. And because you're dealing with 3 dimensions now, you can actually lose windows.
Right, I'm
somewhere.
sure.
Some of them are sideways, some of them are behind each other, some of them are smaller than others, and you wind up with this 3-dimensional mess, and suddenly you're playing mahjong with your windows. And
wow.
I can't stand that, and I don't like when people automatically assume that 3 dimensions is the next step for
I think I made that very point on the show. Somewhere in the last couple of years, we were talking about 3D UI and how stupid that is. It really is. It just doesn't apply. It's a 2-dimensional screen you're working
exciting,
with.
With 3 dimensions. It sounds cool at the outset. You're like, oh yeah, another dimension. But then if you really think about the application, it's not so hot.
Right.
So the URL is www.sun.com/software/looking_glass. So for those of you who might have missed it, that's www.sun.com/software/looking_glass. And it's I can't say enough bad things about it. And I'm not slamming it just because it's Sun or whatever. I'm slamming it because I really don't like where it's going, and it's getting a lot of momentum right now. And in other news, as a lot of people know about, the Visual Studio 2005 Express products have been announced.
Yes.
And this is pretty cool. And the first time I saw this, I thought, well, you know what? Here is what we needed to settle that argument that Kathleen Dollard got fired up, and where we had so much just back and forth over the blogs there for a while. This is the perfect solution for the hobbyist.
For the hobbyist programmer,
Yeah, for those who don't know, right from the product page, this is the Express products, expanding the Visual Studio product line to include lightweight, easy-to-use, easy-to-learn tools for hobbyists, enthusiasts, and novices who want to build dynamic Windows applications and websites.
Yep.
So perfect. Instead of dumbing down the product that we have to use in our daily lives, they just come out with a totally different product that is already
completely dumb. No, I'm just kidding.
Right. So that's really cool. And the URL for that is lab.msdn.microsoft.com/express/default.aspx. That's lab.msdn.microsoft.com/express/default.aspx.
Good.
So that's cool stuff. And also very exciting, Mono version 1 has been released.
Yay!
So yeah,
and actually,
so
Miguel
betas,
was going to be a guest tonight, and he just couldn't make it. So we are
going to get him very soon.
Yeah, we're going to have him very soon. He said he would,
so
it's just a scheduling thing.
Watch the schedule, because that is going to be a fantastic show.
Yep.
So not much to say about that, except that it's out there. And for those of you who somehow don't know, Mono is an open source implementation of parts of .NET. It's essentially like being able to run .NET on your Linux system or on your Mac OS X system, which is what I'm really excited about. And it's probably, in my opinion, it's the most exciting open source project in the universe right now. So
yeah, well, that's pretty good.
Cool. And
I haven't seen
the URL.
The
URL is www.mono-project.com. www.mono-project.com. So that's good stuff.
There you go.
And then not necessarily tech-related, but very cool for geeks, another thing that's been making the rounds lately is the Cassini probe has entered its orbit around Saturn. Which
Yes,
is
I
pretty
saw.
exciting
Yes,
stuff.
I saw that.
Yes.
Or I heard about that on public radio. Actually,
Mhm.
they're it's going to be the first spacecraft to actually orbit the planet. It's in
It's
orbit.
pretty cool.
Yeah.
And on December 24th, it's going to launch the Huygens probe on Titan, which is the only moon in the solar system, at least that we know about, I suppose, that has an atmosphere, has its own atmosphere. And so that's pretty exciting. There's going to be a lot of good stuff happening there. I like this because after all the war and the economy
Right.
and the crap and the murdering and the killing and the dying and the blood and the mess, it's great to hear about something like this. So, it's just a little bit of good news. And you can find that all over the place. You just put Cassini into Google or MSN Search if you use that, which brings us to the next item of news. Microsoft they've put up a preview of their next generation search engine. And it's at techpreview.search.msn.com. And I don't know what the motto is or anything, but I think it might be "this time it works" or something like that.
Okay.
I really don't know, but seems to be a little more accurate than the other one, although it's definitely still not there because I put my name in, I put Rory in, and I searched, and I came back as the 7th result. So they've got some work to do, but
Okay,
zero.
good.
So it's out there, and it's a really they're obviously kind of copying the Google interface to a certain extent by keeping it very, very simple.
Mhm.
And I think that's a good idea. Who cares if you copy? Just do whatever works, do whatever's good, do whatever is easiest for the users, and forget about all the people who are going to badmouth you.
Awesome.
So I might just be able to start using MSN Search someday if this goes through and works out all right. So that's good stuff. And that is the news for the week.
Dun, 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 dun.
Dun, 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 dun.
Maybe we'll paste in some music over that if we find some before Monday. Well, tonight's show is entitled The Speaker's Lounge, and it's the second in a series that we started. The first show was called Reflections on Connections. And we just called up some people, emailed some people, said, hey, who wants to be in a roundtable discussion talking about conferences tonight? And a bunch of people responded. And it turned out to be a great discussion. So what we have tonight, we have a bunch of speakers, a bunch of people who have been guests before and on the line to come and talk to us about what's on their mind. Scott Hanselman, Bill Vaughn,
Hi.
Kathleen Dollard,
Oh.
Don Kiely,
Howdy.
Julie
We on?
Lerman, still there?
Still here. Hadn't gone to sleep yet.
Pat Hynds,
Hey.
Mark Dunn.
Other.
How you guys doing?
Pretty good. Are you okay? Fine. Great to be
Excellent.
back.
Yeah, excellent. So we want to know what's on your mind, and I guess Scott brought up some good topics. Scott, what's on your mind?
I think I emailed it to you, and then at that point I've forgotten it.
Ah,
I usually have to keep all my information on the computer. I have only about a 4K stack, and after that it pretty much
Visual
all
Studio
gone.
Express was the top of
yeah,
your
that
list.
was the top topic, I suppose. And actually, one of the options that we had for the show was to get some people from Microsoft to talk about that, and they're in the queue also.
Maybe Rory could pretend to talk like one of the Microsoft people.
Yeah, there you go. Nah,
Want
that
me to do
probably
my
wouldn't-
bomber?
Yeah.
Yeah. Express.
We're so excited about Visual Studio Express.
He's going to put out a hit on you, man. He's going to take
That
a
was
contract.
Or he'll hire you as a stunt double.
Right.
Yeah, I'm slightly. Well, I'll leave that alone. Yeah.
Well, have any of you guys seen it yet? It just
I
came out.
installed it yesterday.
Okay. What are your
And
impressions?
It automatically updated my ASP.NET 1.1 script maps and IIS to ASP 2.0 without asking,
Yeah.
even though I installed the Visual C# version, not the web developer version.
Isn't that
Hmm.
special?
And
Wonderful.
immediately after I posted that on my blog, the product manager said, oops, that's true, it does do that.
That's not good.
But they promised that they'll take a look at it. Although it did, that's exactly what it did in 1.1 as well.
Well, it's a beta, right?
No, it did that in the production 1.1 as well.
Yeah, I know. 1.1 did it, and also the preview of Whidbey did it as well.
It's a good sign they said oops.
Yeah, well,
They might
hopefully
fix it.
they'll that.
Well, just to be clear, if you do put this on your box, things will stop working.
Yeah.
The second thing that stopped working was I run Beyond TV, which is a digital PVR, personal video recorder for your PC,
Mm-hmm.
and it uses .NET objects. And they started running without asking inside of .NET 2.0,
Huh.
and crashed spectacularly. So I needed to create .config files for all of my .NET EXEs that were acting weird, and tell them that the supported runtime was only 1.1. It also happens to any .NET add-in that's running inside of Outlook. They'll all start automatically running in 2.0. So that includes NewsGator.
And just to remind everybody who's freaking out, it is beta software, right? So they can do that. It's still beta. But
I'm not lamenting them doing that.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the benefit
aside
of
from
things
the
like
problems,
Virtual PC and VMware. I mean,
absolutely.
You should put stuff on, but VPC and VMware just makes it so easy to try this stuff.
The sad part is at the MVP Summit and the Author Summit and the various places they've given this out, they say, okay, here, guys, here's a new CD. Run home and install it someplace and shoot yourself in the foot. So they sit there in the audience trying to install this on their laptop, and they don't understand why everything falls apart after that. And it's
Did anyone have trouble with Service Pack 2? I upgraded my tablet PC, and it went spectacularly. I'm looking forward to putting Service Pack 2 on all my family's machines as I'm the IT manager for the entire family and all second cousins.
Aren't we all?
Hey, Scott, aside from the actual problems with installing, what are your impressions of using Visual Studio Express?
It's pretty good. It's certainly not, Web Matrix++. They really did a very nice job of giving you some neat enough features that it's as cool as Visual Studio 2003. It's not over the top, though. So you do realize that, you get value for purchasing your MSDN Universal license. So they did a very good job of the amounts of features that they put in there.
Fine line.
What kind of stuff is it missing?
All the help comes off of online. So you're asked to answer a license agreement that if it can't find help locally, it will go up online and give you the feeling that you have locally installed MSDN help, but it'll actually be coming on the online MSDN help. So you don't have to do the whole 2 gig MSDN download, which is interesting.
I think there is 40 megs of documentation with it, though.
It does get 40 megs of doc, but there's 2 gigs of other doc that doesn't get installed.
Right.
There's I don't believe they let you do like remote debugging of processes, like attached to process.
Right.
A little more kind of like single app focused. They're really the perfect hobbyist kind of thing. I mean, Microsoft
don't use that word. I don't like that word.
Hobbyist?
Hobbyist.
Okay, let me put it this way. There's a lot of people out there who are managing their little leagues in Access.
Absolutely.
And those people don't want to buy this stuff, and
Absolutely.
if we don't give them something, they're going to use PHP.
Absolutely. I totally agree. I just don't like the word hobbyist. I call them pair developers, people that are not professional developers. But a hobbyist to me is somebody who just wants to do it for fun. He has no stake in it.
Bill, you're sure you're not a Unitarian?
That too.
Just for the record, it was not Don saying that.
How about enthusiast? Is that okay?
Enthusiast is a good word, because hobbyist carries, I'm doing this because I want to, not because I'm going to work 8 to 5. And whether somebody's a secretary or a lawyer or a doctor or a Little League coach,
I just want to differentiate the hobbyist and the enthusiast from the person who has to. If the thing screws up, he's pooched. His business is pooched.
Right.
So,
as
but
opposed
he's not
to his Little League.
As opposed to his Little League. So his Little League sues him. Kids hate him. But
how about wannabe? Is that a good one?
No, terrible. No.
It's hard to have any word for this because it stretches such a big divide. You got academia, you've got people who are, switching over from another technology and don't want to buy a whole big set of tools to try it.
You've got blondes.
Night security guards.
Teachers. Deep Vermonters.
Well, it's almost like the shareware version. It's instead of a time bomb version, it's a feature.
Well,
it's just the express positioning, and they saw SQL Express is for hobbyists and for enthusiasts and that sort of thing, and it can really be a serious platform for serious businesses, small businesses. It's the MSDE replacement, and why they're spinning it this way is just beyond me.
How about amateur developers?
Well, except that's not quite right either.
Yeah, but amateurs go to the Olympics, though.
Well, that's true.
Well, they're as professional as anybody. They spend their entire lives, and if something goes wrong, their careers are pooched as an Olympic. So that's not the same either.
Well, how about screw the terminology? Bill, what is the difference between MSDE and SQL Server Express?
It's a big difference, and they've really come around. And I just wrote an article on MSDN that's still going. You wouldn't believe it. It has to go through the politically correct police at Microsoft before it's published.
Of course.
But you're right.
And
wait a second, isn't it just a matter of naming it something? I mean, MSDE is a neutered version of 2000, and SQL Server Express is a neutered version of 2005.
No. There's the difference. In MSDE, they used a workload governor that was as complicated to explain. You had to be a rocket scientist in order to understand what was really going on.
I just said it only supports 5 users. That's what.
That's not true. It's absolutely not true.
I know, but it was easy to tell people, though.
Yeah, and a lot of people got confused and they didn't use it because they had 12 users sometimes and 3 users sometimes, but. The new SQL Express throws the governor away. They say the hell with the governor. They now limit the amount of RAM to
we did that in Connecticut too, actually.
And one processor. So if you have hyper-threading, you only get one Yeah, and you're limited to 4 gig now as opposed to 2 gig. So you can have a pretty good sized database. And they're also changing the way it's installed. They're dropped the concept of you should install with your own instance approach to creating by default something called a SQL Express instance. So if you don't say otherwise, you're going to get an instance called SQL Express unless there's one already there, in which case it'll do nothing. And you get the choice of naming the instance yourself if you want to, but by default, they want you to use SQL Express as the instance, and all the applications on the system that use SQL Express are supposed to use the SQL Express instance.
Well, how is that different from just using VSNet as your instance name?
You can use VSNet as your instance name. You can do anything you want to.
No, I'm saying that the VSNet version of MSDE always used VSNet already, so I don't see a difference other than...
The difference also is that they have hidden the SA password, so they don't want you to use SQL login security at all. And I don't think that was in place in the MSDE instance.
Right, you're absolutely right.
So Andrew Baum in the chat room says that it will also eventually come with a graphical UI as opposed to MSDE, of course. So
that is a difference. They have, as a matter of fact, they have a graphical UI tool that comes with that helps you set some of the stuff up, but that's external, not the database itself. But it's going to come with another program, SQL Manager. They're still deciding on the name. That's going to give you something like a query analyzer light. That lets you do that sort of thing. It comes with OSQL and SQL Command, both of which are command line tools, which assume that the person knows how to run a batch, which is really necessary to some extent. However, in the beta versions, it doesn't talk to anything. You can't use SQL Enterprise Manager. You can't use the tools, even the tools from Yukon to talk to it yet.
So you have to create table and create database and
you're going to have
manually?
What they really want you to do is attach, detach. And that's really easy to do. You just open the database itself, pointing to the file to be attached. The first time it attaches it, and after that it's just an open.
Label, does it work with Server Explorer and VSNet?
I don't think so. I think I asked that question a couple different ways, and they kept saying no. That's going to happen. It's eventually happened, but apparently now the interfaces are so different, it's just not working. It's not hooked up yet.
And it is going to come with a commercial license. I mean, you can use it commercially?
Right. As I understand it, the licensing is going to be the same as MSDE. It's basically free, and it's designed. I'm going to spin it as being ideal for small business, where you've got 1, 2, 3, 4 dozen users. And today, even with the governor, we've heard about people with dozens of users, 24, 30, 50 users without the governor kicking in at all, because the applications are written intelligently.
And it's obviously It's obviously the the new version of SQL that comes that hosts the framework, right? So it does still have all those same features.
It's exactly the same binaries, It's the same binaries, So it's the same core engine. It's sort of English query isn't there, total text search isn't there, and some of the big features aren't there. But those.
What are the big features you're thinking about, like replication or?
Yes, you can use replication. Replication is there, but the things like, as I said, English query, total text search, and some of those others. And also something else is missing. SQL Agent is missing. It's not there, which is different from the MSDE. Which means if you want to schedule backup jobs, I wrote an application for the church up here, and it's taken more time to do that. Anyway, we won't go there. And it does automatic backups using SQL DML, and that's the way to go. If you want to do backup, it just does it in the background without them even knowing it. So I don't have to run any external stuff.
Apparently, the replication support is transactional and merge, by subscription only, and whereas in MSD it was full merge only.
I think it still has replication, but it is. I'm not sure they've even decided how it's going to work at this point. I think.
Yeah.
What about DTS?
Not available.
DTS is not built in, but it will participate at DTS. It will also participate in reporting services. In other words, you can in fact pull a report off of it, but it can of course host reporting services.
Interesting. Yeah, well, it's pretty good. It looks like a good story. And does anybody know about the price of these things yet? I mean, I haven't seen prices anywhere.
Express is free. SQL Express is free.
SQL Express is free, but what about for the other guys?
It's $4 million.
Well, yeah.
I don't have to sell many, but it's.
Kathleen?
Well, hey, there's a version of Visual Studio that's going to be an Express version.
Right, I think so. I think
that's what I was talking about.
I saw an announcement earlier this week about it.
That's going to be available everywhere except in Minnesota.
It's in response to Kathleen's editorial in VisualStudio.net magazine.
I'm taking personal responsibility for this whole product.
Responsibility and credit.
No. Credit, something.
Well, they named it after you, didn't they? That hobbyist word all over it?
And somebody...
I'm not inferring that Kathleen's a hobbyist. I'm talking about her op-ed piece.
Yeah,
and we're raising Bill's blood pressure, though, when we use that word.
Right.
That's fine. Take your names.
So we've somebody in the chat room is saying it's like less than $100 for the VSNet Express. He says it's just a rumor.
Well, I'm actually looking it up. I'll have it for you in a second.
I heard they were going to put the whole thing on eBay.
Yeah, top bidder this hour.
Probably going to be less than $10 on eBay.
Well, I think it's going to be great not only for the para developers, as Bill likes to call them, or whatever we're calling them, but also for schools,
for hobbyists.
Absolutely.
Well, schools already actually have a drop-dead deal. It's like $1,000 for an entire department or entire high school. I'm not exactly.
And they're standard.
They only get one disc.
They have a lot of
Microsoft will go to a school or a college and say, "We're going to grant you $40 million worth of software, and here's the floppy."
You're kidding, right?
And then there's a sheet with keys on it.
Really?
Because electrons are cheaper than molecules.
Ah.
Yeah, I've seen the sheet with keys, so you're pretty accurate in that description.
But it is good to have anybody who just wants to learn is going to have access to this without being associated with the university. You know, I certainly talk to a lot of people through user groups that are trying to get access to new technologies and struggling to do it financially.
Yeah.
So I think it's a wonderful decision that they made to have this new technology available to anybody who wants it.
And
it certainly makes it easier for as an answer to open source as well, in terms of, it's free, use Linux, use
but at the same time,
right.
This is really just, I mean, believe me, I'm a Microsoft supporter, I love Microsoft, but in the interest of discussion here, it's not like they were keeping the hobbyists out on purpose. It's like, damn you hobbyists, pay us money.
Right.
I mean, MSDE has been free forever. It was hard, but it still existed. I mean, right. Bill brought up the example of doing pro bono work. I did work for nonprofits with MSDE and academic versions of VB6, and I was out at $100 total.
No, I charged the church. I didn't do that pro bono. I charged them $100 an hour.
Right, but you need more grassroots. We need to get Microsoft, if they're going to be successful, has to keep extending further, and that means they have to win over the people who wouldn't play with MSDE.
Right.
Right. And a lot of the stuff, it was free as long as you had a license to something else.
Oh, that's true about MSD, yeah.
Yeah.
It wasn't free.
You still had to shell out money for something.
So you had to buy something, right?
Yeah.
It's the same approach that the coke dealers, the crack cocaine dealers do. The first sample is free.
Oh, right. Yeah, go away.
Well, he's right in a way.
And they sell it on the street corners and across the street from Oracle houses.
A lot of people would start with MSDE and then outgrow it pretty quickly, and then the next step was $10,000 for SQL Server.
Right.
Yeah, but they start with Access and then they get to the hard stuff.
You see,
and that's
Access
the problem.
was not a good ramp up. They ended up being pushed when they got Access.
Well, yeah, but neither was Excel. But still, half the world's business logic runs in Excel.
Absolutely, you're absolutely right. Why is your database out of size? Well, that's all the Excel rows and columns I can have.
Right. Yeah. So what's the solution? Invent a new data type and call it list, which basically says, no, it's okay to use Excel. Just call it a list.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Or save it all to XML. That'll help.
Yeah.
It's stored in a single row in a single column in a SQL Server database as an XML data type.
How do you feel about that, Bill?
There's places for XML. I can think of a number of places that like to put XML. But there are also aberrations. There are things where it has no business being.
And as much as I disagree with Bill's overall sentiment, I have a strong suspicion that that's probably the single biggest feature in Yukon that is going to be abused, because people are just going to start stuffing all kinds of stuff in XML. I think that's
absolutely
for unstructured random data that we sort of use some sort of weird kludges in the database for.
You might as well be writing using the file system, right?
Right. There are great places for it. There really are, and it's when the kids see the new toy. Oh my God! I've got a Makita screwdriver, electric screwdriver. I'm going to screw everything.
Right.
And they do.
No pun intended.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I suspect that that's going to be a great opportunity for database consultants.
Right.
Just
all this stuff is
cover from that sort of stuff.
All this new type of technology is great for consultants. Always.
Consultants just go around fixing jet issues.
Yeah, you've had some experience in that arena.
Yes.
Yeah. How do you feel about that, Bill?
You know how I feel about jet. Jet's a virus.
That's nice. I can just hear Bill Vaughn is Agent Smith. MDAC is a virus.
How many people, you ask a group of developers, how many people in this room have had problems with MDAC issues? There's too many hands. How many have not had problems with MDAC issues?
I haven't had problems with it for years.
Recently?
I've solved all my MDAC problems by not installing it.
That's my solution,
I haven't had
too.
problems in a long time either. I just don't use it.
Did you see the guy in the news group yesterday? He says, I've got MDAC 2.1. The people have heard all these problems with MDAC and they don't want to change it.
Yeah.
The
older versions were bad.
The older version, yeah.
The
broken version. He says, are there incompatibility issues with SQL Server 2000? I said, yes. He says, well, what? I said, yes. It's broken. It's leaks. It's got all, there's a thousand issues.
Yeah.
Ah,
I'm feeling much better now, though.
Yeah. Welcome to Bill's
the
book
MDAC
session.
is almost under control at this point. They've chastised the developers that changed the 2.1 to 2.5 issue, and they've chastised those developers. They don't do that again, but there's so many other subtle things that.
Yeah. So, thumbs up overall, Bill, on Express 2005, SQL Server Express? You think?
I've been playing with it for about 45, 50 days now, and it's very cool. I like it. I like it a lot.
Awesome. Scott, another thing on your list to talk about was, and which I went searching for, but I couldn't find any, was .NET 2.0 breaking changes.
Oh, yeah. Brad Abrams just posted a list of, does .NET 2.0 breaking changes up on got.net.
Okay.
I think let me check right now. I think Brad Abrams put it on
So these
blog.
are changes to the framework that break compatibility with 1.1?
That break existing stuff. It's not a bad thing.
Yeah, we even had some in 1.1.
Well, you have one all the time. Most of them are security related, so you got to give them. There you go. It's blogs.msdn.com/BradA, and that'll give you a list to the got.net team site. And there's a whole series of backwards breaking changes as well as public API changes. The interesting one is the visual VB collections. Remember how VB collections had the whole weird zero-based for read, -1 for insertion?
Yeah.
That's going to be fixed and made correct. So all the workarounds you added last version, you need to remove them now.
Yeah. Well, actually, that's good.
So they're going to be zero-based again?
It's just subtle.
Yeah.
What's that?
Yeah. So they're going to be zero-based again?
Apparently.
They're going to be based on 7 this time.
Yeah, that was the only thing that the easiest collection to use is the worst one in VB.net. DimCOL is new collection. That's the worst one.
Well, the thing that's so interesting, here's something for you guys to tell me what to do. There's the VB collection class, which is there purely for compatibility. It's the Uber collection. It's a collection. It's it slices, it dices, it makes Julian fries.
Yeah.
Very slowly.
There's this collection base, which you derive your new strongly typed collections on. But if you don't feel like doing your own casting, you use system.generics.
Yeah.
So you can make generic collections, you can use the new improved collections, or you can use the VB collection. So the collection story is getting a little muddled.
Discollected.
Yeah.
But still, even though they're making these changes, there's still no kind of fundamental sets like hash maps and double hash maps, like a doubly linked hash table and different things like that.
So you're looking for like them to do what Java did and have different kinds of collections like vectors and that kind of thing.
Yeah, I mean like computer science collections, like stuff that you expect. I should have sets and you get Q and you should just be able to pull them out of thin air. They should just be there, and they're not. And that's a bummer.
Write an article.
Yeah,
that'll get their attention.
I actually previewed some technical. I previewed some technical writing the author was doing on generics, where it was obvious that he clearly didn't understand generics. One of the first examples he gave was a collection that derived from a generic collection, and then a collection base, and then implemented its own, add and item property. But it was a generic collection already, so all he had to do was just use the generic list or something like that, and he was duplicating all this code.
I'm just thinking that it's going to confuse people.
Well, it's already confused people.
I think it's really great that they're going to let VB6 people go all over 1.0, over 1.1, and leapfrog all the way to 2.0.
Yeah.
But to have an entire class exist just for comfort makes me a little uncomfortable.
Yeah.
I think that decision's kind of behind them, though. They can't. I think it'd be difficult to drop it between 1.1 and 2.0.
I think it's one of those things you're going to have to get over.
Based on anything I say, I'm just saying I think it's cheesy.
Yeah,
I think you need to get over.
I mean, the real question is why did they put it in there? I mean, somebody obviously wanted that or asked for it. I would.
Well, arguably everything that's in the framework is either there because someone argued for it or forgot that it was still there.
Yeah.
So arguably someone really, really wanted it.
Well, I think the bigger problem is what with the tools that they have with all the generic stuff. How do you use it correctly? And this guy's technical writing was a perfect example of that. Here's a guy who's supposedly he was writing a book actually on how to do this, and clearly didn't get it all the way. Do you know what I mean? Didn't understand what the best cases to use and when to use what, and was duplicating all this code. So yeah, as people say, as I think Bill said, you're going right from leapfrogging from VB6 right to 2.0. to .NET 2.0, and now you've got even more options than you had in the first version of .NET. Now you have generics. You know what I'm saying? They don't see the progression of technology up to generics and all of that stuff in the middle there. What do they do with that?
They just know there's something called collection.
This is the same pattern we saw when we moved it. When I was back on the VB team back in Quick Basic time, and when I was associated with the VB team back in the MBasic 80 time, every time they changed and added the new language, they had to carry forward certain functionality to keep the existing developers happy. And it's just the nature of the beast. It's the nature of what happens.
It's true.
What has to happen. And .NET Visual Basic .NET Visual Fred has really changed that paradigm because they left so much behind. So much legacy stuff that was started in Bill's MBasic 80.
Right.
Back in the CPM days. A lot of that stuff was left behind. And for the first time, all the languages up to that point had carried it. The piece set of these little
Go sub.
The Go subs, and it's even lower level than that. So all kinds of stuff, diffint A through Z and that sort of thing. And these behaviors are just kept for the marketing reasons because they're deathly afraid of creating a language that nobody will come to.
Yeah.
Creating a party that nobody will go to.
Yeah.
I even saw
marketing drives this stuff as much as technology does. It's probably more so.
I even saw some code with GoTos in it. Where was it? It was a DirectX sample. I downloaded DirectX 9.0 Toolkit. If you've never done DirectX or graphics programming and you're thinking, I might want to write some code to do some shading or some 3D, just do something else because this stuff is insane.
It's totally different. Yeah,
it's totally different.
If you're coming from an object-oriented world, then graphics, game programming, stuff like that, it's a totally different thing. I was reading a story recently.
I don't think it's fair to say object-oriented programming obviates go-tos. We just call them exceptions.
Oh, okay, but I'm talking about the word "go-to." It was everywhere.
But it's all created the same way. The IL is still a go-to.
Yeah,
it's still a branch.
Still a branch, not equal.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, I'm not trying to be.
We know what you're trying to be. Just be it.
I'm not trying to be academic about it. I'm just trying to say that a go-to by any other name.
Yeah. No, it's true.
I don't think go-tos are so evil if you can find a good reason to use one.
Name one.
Oh, exiting out of, maybe not in .NET languages. I used to be a COBOL programmer at one point in my life. Okay, so we're going to go way back. At any rate, I worked in a shop that was structured, and one of the rules was you could not use a goto statement. So if you were in a heavily nested loop in COBOL, gotos were really nice to get you out of that loop conditionally.
Right, of course, and that's why we call them breaks and continues, which are just gotos by another.
Right, exactly. I totally agree.
All right,
so you don't like the spelling. That's what it is.
Let me put it this way: if you go and do static cyclomatic complexity analysis on a function, and it comes out with a number that's higher than 10, it either contains a switch statement or a goto, or some number of mid-function returns. Do you guys think that it's a problem to have 4, 5, 6 ways out of a function? Do you guys think the whole
that was the
fail,
issue.
If that fail?
The issue is what we're really scared of is spaghetti programming, where the flow goes in no particular readable order.
Right.
And that's exactly the point. I mean, a goto is not an exception. It's not the same thing. It's not the same thing at all, because a goto allows you to go to an arbitrarily, defined point in your code somewhere, and then to bring it back to someplace else, and someplace else, and someplace else. Whereas, you're trying your catch. I mean, you can follow it pretty deterministically, right?
It promotes bad habits, and
that's it.
It's like at home dentistry. You can do it, but it's not recommended.
Exactly.
Is that like brain surgery in the mirror? I think is their
exactly.
Yeah.
Well said.
Like that guy in Master and Commander who took a bullet out of his own stomach there. Did you see that movie, Pat?
Not yet.
Yes,
actually,
I did.
That helped me take a bullet out of my own stomach once, so I looked at that more as an educational thing. If I hadn't seen that movie, I would have gone,
to the emergency room.
Just come see us, Scott. We'll take care of you. We can insert the bullet and take it out.
Yeah.
We have the technology.
After seeing that movie, I wanted to shoot myself just so I could take a bullet out.
And chop my arm off.
It was a good movie.
It was a good movie.
Made me flinch. All right, you guys. Well, listen.
A lesser of two weevils. Come on.
Yeah, that was good, Joe.
Come on, that was worth the $8 just to get into the flick.
All right, guys. It's about that time where we have to pay the bills and listen to some music, so we'll be back in about 10 minutes, so stick around. Don't go away.
Should I tell you hello? You might not say hello back to me. Each time I see you, I lie. I only tell you things that you want to hear. When will we turn on the light? Will you walk next to me if I walk next to you? Why should we walk hand in hand? People might think that we understand. Each time you kiss me, you lie. You say the words, yeah, but they don't mean a thing. When will we turn on the lights? Will you lie next to me if I lie next to you? No, it's only a song. No, it's only a song. I didn't mean it like that. It's only a song.
Hey, well, this is working out a lot better than I thought it would, isn't it? I enjoy these roundtable discussions. Anyway, I wanted to just direct your attention to our website, www.franklins.net, where we have put up our schedule of classes for the fall. And if you're looking to take the VBNet Masterclass, we have space August 16th, September 13th, October 4th, November 15th, and December 6th. If you're looking for the ASP.NET Masterclass, August 23rd, September 20th, October 25th, November 29th. Great classes, and if you want to check out some testimonials and learn what we talk about and what we write, go up to www.franklins.net. I also wanted to mention, you're never going to eat at a better... I also want... I can't even talk now. I also want to mention that you'll never have better lunches at any other training class than at Franklin's.net. Good food. I mean it.
Gone away the fireflies that I saw from my brother's eyes. Gone away the summers of my dreams. Racing cans down Irving Street, safe and warm in the evening. Someone always looking out for me. Trade you a Steely for that candy bar, asleep in the back of my daddy's car. I know he'll tuck me in when we get home. When I was 16, I drove that car, fly away so fast, so far. Try to find someone else who thinks like me. Who do I turn to? Who can I trust? The house next door has an impenetrable crust. Such a big neighborhood and yet so all alone. In my dream factory. My dream factory. Just a kid, what the hell do you know? What have you learned from your life down below? Love and happiness won't pay for things you need. Like a dream factory. Like a dream factory. Like a dream factory. as a child, I knew more than I know now.
Hey, Carl Franklin here, giving a shout out to my friends at Data Dynamics. We've talked a lot about Active Reports on this show, and this is no exception. So I'm talking about ActiveReports.net. This is a port of their popular Active Reports program. If you're currently thinking of doing reporting in .net for Windows Forms or web applications, check out Active Reports for .net. Many of my friends in the business use and swear by ActiveReports.net. I use it as well. Let me just tell you, to say that the reporting is simple does it an injustice, because it makes you think that it can only do simple things. It can do very powerful things, but you don't have to go through hoops just to set up a simple report. When you create a report, the report exists with your application, okay? It doesn't exist on a server somewhere. All right, we're not talking about enterprise reporting. We're talking about, I have some data, I want to print it out, or I want to show it to the user. PDF format is supported, HTML format is supported, all the great features you'd expect from a reporting engine, drop dead simple, and the best part, it's not going to break the bank. They have a great licensing scheme that's easy to deal with. So check it out at www.datadynamics.com. Now let's get back to our show.
And now's the segment on our show when we do a little episode we like to call Linux Vulnerability of the Week.
Hello, Mr. Bull. Let's you and me fight.
And we like to do this little segment not to bash Linux or its users, but just to sort of settle the level the playing field on the Linux zealotry out there. The Linux zealots claim that Windows has bugs and Linux does not. And to put those things to rest, we like to read a couple of the vulnerabilities that have happened in the past week that are posted on www.linuxsecurity.com/advisories. And I'll just read down a couple of them just so that we can get the idea. And on the 30th, there was a Fedora 2 bug, a non-authentication vulnerability. When configured to use x.509 certs to authenticate remote hosts, IPsec tools versions 033 and earlier will not abort the key exchange if the verification fails. We have buffer overflow vulnerabilities in Gen 2, MIT KRB5. There's a Gen 2 Pavok buffer overflow vulnerability, a Mandrake Apache buffer overflow vulnerability, all on 630. Mandrake Apache 2 denial of service vulnerability, 630. Also on 630, Mandrake libpng buffer overflow vulnerability. Also on 630, Trustix Apache libpng Python denial of service vulnerability. On 625, Debian Apache buffer overflow vulnerability. And all sorts of stuff in the kernel on Fedora 1. Multiple vulnerabilities on 625. So the list goes on. And you know, Rory, it's getting to be a little monotonous now. I think people are getting the point. I hope they're getting the point. We like to just give equal time here on .NET Rocks to the anti-zealots. So there you go.
Hello, Mr. Bull. Let's you and me fight.
Yeah. So, gang, are y'all out there?
Yeah.
Yeah, we're still here.
Excellent. Hope you survived the break okay?
Sure.
I love Dream Factory. You know,
thanks, Don.
Beautiful song.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. When I was a child, I was smarter, actually, in some ways.
Yeah, parenting makes us a little slower.
Yeah, a little bit, huh?
I don't think so. I think you just have to think about everything you say and everything you do very, very carefully because they're all on record.
And that doesn't slow you down?
Well, you seem slower, but you're working an awful lot harder.
Oh, that's true. Maybe it's the appearance of slow.
Do you speed back up when they get out of the house?
Yeah, when they
Really?
leave. Yeah.
Dogs. Having dogs is great. You don't have to worry about that. They don't want to go to college. You don't have the expense. If they misbehave, you can tie them up out in the yard.
It's like having a 2-year-old
not
forever.
at this state.
But my 17-year-old...
And unlike people, dogs poop on the bed, so that's good.
They sure do.
And my 17-year-old...
One of my dogs is suffering from diarrhea, and I don't want her to have to...
Thanks, Don.
Yeah, well,
Too much information.
My 17-year-old is teaching my 12-year-old to take over his IT duties when my 17-year-old leaves the house, so that's good.
Have you read Daniel's book? Daniel Appleman's new book?
They haven't yet.
I think that's
cool book.
it's a very cool book.
They're reading Code, Petzold's book.
I looked at that in Borders last week, and I think it's it's great for anybody.
Yeah, not just for teens.
All kinds of good information.
I got a call from my house. A teenager was over at our house who's a friend of the family, and she wanted to use our computer and wanted to know if I could turn the firewall off because she was running a program that required certain access or something like that, and it wasn't working because the firewall was on. So she called to ask me if she could turn the firewall off, and I said, of course, no. I'm sorry, but you'll have to use some other program.
Did she tell you the app she wanted to run was the virus construction kit?
No, it seemed like a perfectly okay application. It's just that I know from watching, the scopes and stuff that when you turn the firewall off, it doesn't take more than 2 seconds before someone's trying to hack you.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, the port scanners are going constantly.
Yeah, you start going, who do I know in Bangladesh?
So, Mark, what's been on your mind these days? Has you been?
Oh, well, all sorts of stuff. I was just talking to Bill about beating the dead horse about documentation in Visual Studio. So I don't know if we will really want to get into that or not, but it's something that bothers me. I wind up using Google all the time, and I find myself not using the help system. So I have a dream. My dream is I want to hit F1 and just see code. I want a code filter there. I don't want to have to read about it. I just want to see the code itself.
Yeah, that's interesting.
Well,
that'd be cool.
Simple request. Never happened.
Code with links to the information instead of the other way around, right?
Exactly.
So the bugs come out down there in Atlanta yet?
Well,
I don't think I'd want a help system like that. I like the combination. I like to read about it and learn about what it is that I'm trying to figure out.
I like the words, too. I like to be able to see the code. And the code certainly does tell the story, but often I like to see the interrelationships between this property and, I'm supposed to really be thinking about this property, and if I use that object, then I need to have, this understanding these methods.
Well, that's it.
I think what bugs me about it is when I go in to use MSD and help, I wind up always getting, like, the inheritance tree for something.
Like Office something, or
or
DirectX, or some obscure, being able to filter it down and say, just give me things that, you know what I'm working on. My God, you can see the code.
It sounds
that's what I'm interested in. Yeah,
it's personal too because I love those trees. There's times I'm going looking for them. So it depends on what you're doing, but it also depends on the way you work. And I do hope Microsoft does work on getting over. It seems whenever there's a problem in people understanding something, they write a lot more words, like a few more 90-page white papers. And I'm really not convinced that helps the average programmer very much.
Thanks.
It sounds like they just need a filter.
Well, they have a filter. There's a filter of, filtered by topic. So if you limit it to Visual Basic, for example, you get VB plus the framework.
It sounds like they need more
filtering. The problem is
filtering.
the examples are all in C#, so
they're not all in C#.
They're not all in C#.
No, they're not.
Here's a filter I'd like to see in the WIDBE documentation for the betas and the alphas. The docs for the new stuff has this bright red text on there that says, this is new for .NET 2.0.
Yeah.
I would love
That's
to
a great idea.
on that.
I would like to be able to see just the new stuff. This is different, or like the change bars in Word. If we change stuff, you can see the new words, the edits that they've done, so you can focus right on things that have changed for 2.0.
I thought they had that, didn't they? Or they just have?
There's no way. I've actually
there's no
found
filter, but there's text. Yeah.
I've had to sit with two computers open and literally go through the reference library to really try to drill into.
It would be great to see a different color for the versions, and this is implemented here because now that we're going to have to build applications for 1.1 specifically that will run on 1.1, but they will run on 2.0, but the 2.0 ones won't run on 1.1 anymore. So you have to be careful of what you're using.
Mm-hmm.
So it's getting strange again. We've done this before. Someplace back in time, didn't we do this before when we switched from one version of Windows to the other? 16 to 32-bit Windows.
Thunk before you port, right?
Yeah.
I listened to that.
Yeah.
I'm a big What Do You Know fan.
Well, I finished my... Peter Blackburn and I are working on a reporting services book, and we turned in the last chapters last week, and we're working on the videos now, the Camtasia videos now.
Oh, great.
And we've learned a boatload of stuff that we should have talked to you about, Carl, about audio issues.
Oh, right.
And Camtasia is really, really great. It's one of the
awesome.
Snagit are excellent products. The problem is
those are amazing. I've gone to Snagit completely for all of my articles and books.
It is so cool, and it thinks ahead of you. Oh my God! If it just did, it does that. It's just so cool. The Camtasia product, it really brings your system to its knees, and you have to get to hold your mouth just right. And if the sound cards aren't right, things
not
get
necessarily.
very nasty.
It's just configuration. You just have to know.
It is. It's all in configuration. What Peter did, he was very worried about sound quality, so he went out and bought himself like 6 sound cards, and he wasn't happy. He kept installing them and uninstalling them. It turns out his registry was so full of sound card entries and cross entries it confused, and he had to rip all of that out manually.
Yeah.
But once he got it stable, it's the movies that I'm making are very cool, and we use a freeware Audacity to do the sound editing, and it's these are going to be very cool videos.
That's good. I typically
is a little bit on the pricey side, but I may actually jump for that.
The Camtasia?
Yeah. The thing is, you have to save it to. The thing that works best with me is an external USB or FireWire hard drive, and just completely offload it, and also turn the write caching off.
Wait, it doesn't save to a hard drive, a local hard drive?
It does save to a local hard drive, but that'll mess with your system. So
notebook drives are slow too. The external ones you can get 7,200 RPM.
Yes.
Yeah, I've got some pretty fast drives in the system. It's also hyper-threaded, and that helps a lot. And it's got 2 gigs of RAM. That helps.
Right.
But
and also the frame rate doesn't have to be big. It only has to be like 5 or 10 frames per second.
We're not also creating AVIs. We're creating SWFs now. We're creating
me too. I've done that.
And it makes them much smaller. We're not seeing any delta in the visuals.
So, Bill, are you creating those for a DVD or a CD that goes with the book? Or
right. These are going to be on the DVD for the book, and the DVD is going to be full of these videos with samples, sample codes, reports, and stuff as well. And we're also hoping to be able to build them for training courses. And because of the way we've built them, they can be localized. We've kept the sound separate from the AVI completely, so we can build these up and have them translated into Spanish or French or German.
Get Fernando to do it for you.
Right. Yeah, I think it'd be great.
Mm.
And Giovanni can do the Italian version, of course.
Well, Julie, I know that it's late for you as it is for me. It's 11:22, and you need to go to bed soon. So we haven't heard much from you. What have you been working on these days?
Oh, my goodness, a little bit of everything right now. I'm deep in ADO.NET 2.0, trying to really dig through some of the new stuff in there. So that's always fun, having been a database programmer for 20 years.
Mm-hmm.
What's the thing that's most impressed you about ADO 2.0?
Well, today it's a daily change, I think. Early on, I was really excited about data tables becoming first-class citizens.
Right.
Today, I think I finally found a reason why I might actually use data adapter commands, because I always just, use stored procedures and transactions.
Mm-hmm.
But with the batch inserting, batch updating, things like that, and the way they've done it, the way that's working in the background, I think I'm finally convinced.
So what was the project that convinced you? What was the application?
Well, actually, I'm just exploring the tools and writing some demos to do some benchmark testing and see what the different things look like. It's for an article that I'm doing.
What do you think about the asynchronous stuff?
That I haven't. That's next. That's tomorrow's project. But I'm definitely excited about that too.
I think that's cool too. We talked with a couple of guys on the team, Pablo and Castor and some other people, about asynchronous opening. The fact that they've dropped that is disappointing. What do you think about async opens?
Oh, because that was in the earlier.
Right. Well, it was in the spec, but I'm not sure they ever implemented it correctly.
It didn't make it in.
Well, since the connections are pooled, does it matter? I mean, is it that big of a deal now to open a connection?
Well, you can also you can share the connections, right? So I wonder if that.
Yeah, that's Mars. That's something else. And it was the problem is that they're not really opening a connection when they open a connection. They're pulling one from the pool, and it gets very complex behind the scenes about whether the connection is actually there or not, and so
with
forth.
The async.
Yeah, with async, you're trying to open them async. Yeah. It's what they had in ADO 2.0. ADO Classic 2.5, I think, is they turned on async connections. And it lets you, especially in situations where it took 3, 4, 5, 10, 15 seconds to get connected, like when you connect to a JET database, Lord help us. It sped up the process visually. In other words, you returned immediately and you give the user something to do, or you can play a game or something while they're waiting for connect. And they've pulled that, which I think is regrettable.
Julie, have you been doing any more work on the tablet these days?
Oh, I'm always doing work on my tablet. I love my little Acer C110, and I'm soon going to be returning it to my client, Boohoo. But I'm getting a Toshiba M200, which is going to be a lot bigger and a lot more powerful. So that'll be a lot of fun. Yeah, I just did a presentation on working with the SDK up in Montreal at DevTeach.
Yeah.
And that was great fun because everybody who came to the session was already really excited about checking out this stuff, and we just wanted to lock the door when it was time for the next session to start.
Yeah.
And just keep going and going.
It seems like a lot of the things that I've seen on the tablet have been, how to recognize the ink and to work with the ink as data and stuff. And I don't know. I know of a couple of good applications for it, but I don't have like this big mental list of applications handy yet that where this is really going to work.
I think there's a whole collection of different ways to look at it. Some of the stuff you don't have to even use the SDK for. So, for example, if you're just writing a kind of a data entry application, I like to think anything that was that you might have used a clipboard for. That can be a tablet application because it goes right into the database. And so you don't really have to. You can get away without even touching the SDK to do that stuff. You can leverage what's already built into the tablet operating system.
Do you have to store the data as text or image, or is it?
Because you can get the data out as streams. What the ink is doing. So you can remember. You can store the recognition list, because not only does it recognize one word, but then it stores along with that word all of its other guesses, and you can actually store all that stuff. Or you can take the ink itself and stream that and store the stream or convert it to a GIF or whatever. So one of the things I'm doing, Carl, probably coming from a similar place as you, I'm used to data entry applications. So I also look at this stuff at first and said, well, what would I do with that? And I'm constantly looking around to see what other people are doing for inspiration. So a lot of the math kind of things where you can actually, write out formulas and calculations, things that I can't do with a keyboard. What can I do with a pen and paper that I can't do with a keyboard? Those are the kinds of things I've been looking at.
Well, Carl, at DevTeach in Montreal, I walked up when you were videotaping something going on with the tablet PCs.
Right.
You were having different people write stuff.
Yeah.
And
this is going to be.
That was the contest we were doing.
It's part of. It's going to be part of .NET Rocks the movie, so you'll see it in there. But
okay.
It was the recognition challenge, and the recognition built into Lone Star did really well up until it came up against Richard Campbell. His handwriting is just insane.
I looked over the shoulder as Nick was writing, and I couldn't read his handwriting, and yet Tablet PC did some amazing.
It was pretty good.
It's one of the most impressive things. Once you start looking at what the programming is that makes that happen, and all of the things that they're doing in the background, it just makes me admire, Aaron and all of those guys on the tablet team so much, because it's just amazing what they've done.
And that was using the
Very
features
complex.
with WinXP SP2, right?
Yeah.
Okay,
I hate
so
to be
it really got to me.
Even on a desktop, you'll be getting that operating system, just not some of that functionality that comes along with the digitizer, but it'll get installed right to just a desktop computer.
I hate to be an naysayer, but Peter has one of these Acer tablet PCs, and we tried to use it with reporting services. And for whatever reason, there was a number of things we simply couldn't do with the tablet. And he was very interested in trying to see if you could integrate the two together, and it did not work. He loves the system, but it is there's a couple of things there that did not work.
What was he trying to do with it?
That's when you go into the SDK and start extending the functionality.
No, it was just user interface with Visual Studio, and the way the add-in was working, there was a couple of things that it simply didn't hook up correctly.
Was he using the pen, or was he using a mouse?
I think he was using the pen, and some of the motions and the UI and the add-in apparently were not set up correctly, so you could drag and drop things onto the reporting services, that sort of thing. It was just kind of a goofy thing.
I don't relish the concept of trying to program with ink.
One of the things that people usually talk to me about when they ask me what I think about my tablet is, okay, so how is it for development? And the thing is about tablets, they're about as much a developer machine as a smartphone. These things are for the users. And while you're going to have to do some development on the tablet, it's not necessarily where you're going to want to do all your development at all. You're going to want to do your inking testing on the tablet and everything, but it's not a dev machine and it's not a work machine. It's a user machine. So,
no, I use it. I use it when I'm traveling, but then I'll program on it when I'm traveling. But I certainly wouldn't do that full time.
Yeah, at home you'd never want to do that, because that's what a lot of people ask me. They say, okay, but great. So how is it as a dev machine? Well, bloody awful would probably be the answer, because that's really not what it's for. It's for flipping into tablet mode and going and sitting down and, I don't know, like Encarta surfing or filling out a form or reading an ebook or doing some of these math programs that they have, where you're writing things out like you were talking about, Julie. Tablets are all about the user, and the developer is just there to make it happen. So much more user-oriented than any other large form factor.
Well, the problem that Peter faced is that when he went to the field, went to a demo and so forth, he wanted to take the tablet with him as his only laptop. He went to the field, and he's trying to demonstrate reporting services, and it didn't work. And that's the problem. So he couldn't afford to have two laptops.
John's coming to Vermont in a couple of weeks. Maybe I'll let him play with my tablet PC when he comes here to talk to my user group. Maybe I'll make you do the presentation on the tablet, John.
Ooh, Julie, I would love to play with your tablet.
No.
But Julie, I was going to ask that. So with what is coming in Windows XP SP2, am I going to want to get a digitizer for my desktop machine? Forget about the tablet. Is that going to be
that'll give you everything.
Way of input into my desktop machine?
Absolutely. And when you and you'll have the operating system installed right there.
Cool.
It comes down as part of SP2. So Don, what are you going to talk about when you come to speak at Vermont.net?
I'm going to talk about security and least privilege. And I've been enjoying some of your blog entries, Julie, about the throes of going through converting your system to least privilege. It really is the only way to do development, but there's serious challenges with the state of Windows right now.
Definitely. It's been painful.
And I'm looking forward to that. So I haven't been to Vermont in years, and my last best memory of Vermont was having pancakes with Vermont maple syrup.
If you need filler, I'll tell you about taking my cat to the vet earlier this week.
Yeah, go ahead, Mark.
Oh, you want to hear about my cat story?
Yeah.
All right, so I have this cat. We got the cat when it was a nice, cute little kitten, and it keeps growing, as cats often do. And it came time to take it to the vet for its rabies shot this week. So my wife comes to get me and says, we need your help because the cat won't fit in the pet carrier. It's just too big. So I come in and sure enough, you couldn't get this cat in there. And you could tell the cat was already seriously disturbed by her efforts to get it in the pet carrier.
Mm.
So we call the vet and go, hey, do you guys have a pet carrier we can borrow? Because we're like 15 minutes, away from our appointment.
Right.
And the vet says, no, but what you can do is get a pillowcase and put the cat in a pillowcase.
That's how I used to take my cat around to the vet in Brooklyn.
Is that right? Well, she said this is a technique that really works. The cat will be calm. And apparently that works on every cat but mine. I think it was so agitated, by the time we brought a pillowcase out, and, the 4 members of my family, all working in unison, were unable to get it in the pillowcase. Yeah. So we wound up throwing it in the back of my truck, and I drove over to the vet's office.
You have a cab on the truck?
Well, no, it's a CRV. It's
okay.
an enclosed vehicle, so we just put it in the back. And, yeah, driving over there, he was, like running around screaming. I've got hair all over the vehicle and me. So that was my cat story for the week.
Well, you should have shaved it first.
What's that?
You should have shaved it first.
Yeah, no kidding. I've had someone threaten to shave my cat if I didn't stop talking about C++ developers.
I hear that's really hard to do.
Yeah.
So, shave a cat, yeah. Hey, Kathleen.
Uh-huh.
Last time you were on the show, we were talking about code generation. You're still working on that, obviously. You said something about doing some training on custom code generation?
Yeah. I'm doing been working with several clients and got a couple of things planned where I'm working with a team of developers on their own code. So we're actually building their application, but we're doing it in a room with a projector. So it's sort of group programming and sort of training. So what I'm able to do is give them both .NET expertise and code generation expertise in a context that makes sense to them. And so I've been doing a little bit of that, and it's fabulous fun. I'm just absolutely loving it. And finding that different people work differently. And so I'll let the keyboard wander around the room. I use a wireless keyboard, and let whoever needs to be typing type, and which gives me the freedom to talk. So I kind of get free.
It's kind of like a wiki.
It is. It's really kind of cool, and everybody's focused. In one case, in fact, we had the manager in the room because we needed some fast decisions, and he sat there doing email, completely ignoring us until we needed a decision. And then it was like, Ted, wake up, and he'd give us a decision in a minute, and we'd be rolling again. It was awesome. So that's been just tons of fun, and it's been a lot of what I've been doing lately. I also have another client that I'm doing a little bit more long-term stuff with, but it's been a whole lot of fun working with other people, picking it up kind of on a...
Do you see any new tools in the Whidbey time frame that help your cause of code generation or make things easier for you?
Well, we're moving forward. Different people are moving forward in different ways, and so some of what Microsoft's doing is not quite where I think maybe we should be going, but that's a good thing, I think, because a lot of people are thinking. Partial classes are good for some context. They're not going to change code generation in a big way because we still need the control we get from derived classes where we can say exactly what we're going to override by choice, even in the future after we're done designing the code, so as we do maintenance. But there's some good things in there. Partial classes are good. Generics are certainly good. That's going to makes code generation better as well as anything else. And then some of what they're doing with the building classes and all is a good direction. It just doesn't give I don't think it gives the programmer enough control yet. I really like programmers being able to change their templates now or in the future as their needs change.
Yeah.
And Kathleen, slow down a bit, but tell more. You've done some serious work since the show about morphing. Some of the changes to the actual code generation.
The whole object relational mapping stuff I've yanked out from what I put in the book, and I've rewritten, and I'm currently in beta on that, trying to look for enough databases to run it against that I think that we're ready to go on it. But I rewrote that, and I'm really happy with the new version. The first one was XML to XML, so I was going to use XSLT, and it was just an incredibly difficult process. I mean, if you can imagine doing object relational mapping in XSLT, that was what I did.
Yeah.
And that's what I've yanked out now and replaced with real code. So that's been a lot of fun to write also.
Wow, that's cool. I just noticed that Dan Appleman joined us. Dan, are you there?
Hey, Carl. How you doing?
How are you, man?
I'm doing pretty good.
Glad you could join us.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry I was a little bit late, but I was busy working on some code and just lost track of the time.
I know the feeling.
I'm sure you do.
That's all I've been doing this week is coding and losing track of time. What are you working on?
Well, honestly, this summer I'm spending most of my time traveling. I'm doing something I've never done with any of my other books. I'm actually doing book tours. So I'm actually traveling around the country and meeting people and doing radio and TV and all that kind of stuff. It's a very strange experience.
Going to be on Larry King anytime soon?
I don't know. That would be nice. I'd really like to be on Jon Stewart. That would be awesome.
Yeah.
So if any of you listeners out there know his booker, let me know.
So what kind of talk shows and things have you been showing up on?
Well, most recently I was on KGO, which is a local San Francisco talk radio. That was yesterday.
Cool.
And it's really been interesting because this is my first consumer book. Always use protection, and it's for consumer security. And it's sort of, it's been a while since I've talked to real people. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So we spend so much time talking to developers, and I'm out there talking to sort of ordinary computer users, and I really feel for them. Yesterday I was apologizing I was at a book signing, and I was apologizing to everybody there on behalf of all software developers for really the terrible job we've done on security and some of the practices we have in terms of upgrades and license agreements and so on. I've decided that if we want the government to help our industry, what they should do is we don't need laws on viruses and we don't need laws on porn. What we need is a law that limits the length of any software license agreement to 2 paragraphs in plain English.
That's a good idea.
And that would completely revolutionize the computer industry. It would be fantastic.
It'd be forced to make it comprehensible.
Of all the people whom I've met at these signings, not a single one when asked has said that they've read a license agreement.
Yeah. Well, what's the point? You either say yes and use the software, or you say no and don't use it.
Exactly. So
you need to use the software. You're gonna accept whatever they say.
So I don't know where everyone out there is, but come look at my website and see where I'm going to be, and come and say hello, because this is that's sort of half the fun is meeting friends in all the various places I'm visiting.
Are you coming to Atlanta anytime soon?
Not Atlanta. I'm going to be in D.C. is as close as I get to that. That's in September.
And you're coming to Boston too, right?
I am going to be up in Boston and Connecticut and New York and do that East Coast thing. I'm going to be up in Portland and Seattle later this month, Indianapolis next week after that, Southern California. So definitely They're sending me around.
Dan, I think it's really interesting that you're crossing into the consumer space with this.
Well, it's desperately needed. I mean, in a way, we need more software professionals, people who are in this industry to be out there talking to the people who are using our products.
Yeah. And,
it's been a real eye-opener for me. It's a lot of fun. I'm talking to, everyone from teenagers to grandmothers, because, even though it is a book for teenagers, I found that a lot of the adults and grandparents and so on really like it as well. So that's been very good.
Most of us are used to doing this because we're, tech support for our families and we email our friends when viruses come out and just try to make sure they understand what, the different messages are that are coming, or when there's a spam message that sounds like it's a virus and it's going to trick them and it's taking advantage of them. So it's nice to just kind of take that knowledge that we have and our ability to communicate and translate for them, and so I like what you're doing with that.
Thank you. But I've also noticed that a lot of people have picked up their security information piecemeal. So they know a little bit here and a little bit there, but they're sort of missing some of the big picture, and that leaves holes in their knowledge. And of course, all it takes is one hole, and you get vulnerable there, and problems start happening. So, one of the things I've been trying to do is encourage people to really take the time to learn security. Take a day and actually learn this stuff. It doesn't take any longer than that to dramatically increase your overall security. So,
do you think the new release of XP is going to help them out?
Well, I think there's two things going to happen with the new release of XP, and I'm just speculating here because I haven't really played much with it, but I think that it's going to dramatically improve the security of systems, but a whole bunch of people are going to yell and scream and not use it because of the things it's going to break. So, it's going to be a double-edged sword there, I think.
Right. And we were talking about that a while ago when we were talking with you about your book, is that, the printer doesn't work. Oh, we'll just turn the firewall off and it'll work. Oh, yeah, okay, I'll turn the firewall.
Yeah, so, a lot depends on what happens when XP hits the real world of real people, who right now are, many of them are still running Windows 98 and have older systems, and they already have a bunch of gunk on their system. It's going to be very interesting. I think Microsoft is making a big mistake by not allowing the service pack to install on hacked versions of XP, though. I mean, I understand, but at the same time, I think they should let the upgrade happen because it will improve our overall security if they did.
Yeah. What? How this book came out just a few months ago, right? And how are the sales doing?
Well, it's always hard to know with books. We're on the second printing now, which is very nice.
That's good.
That's always encouraging. But as I say, it's very hard to say because you don't know how many of them are sitting on the shelves and
True.
how many of them have actually made it into people's houses yet.
True.
And it's going to take some time before we really know that.
What's your sense of how it's doing?
My sense is it's going well and that it's gaining momentum.
Yeah.
So, I'm beginning to get more feedback, more word of mouth, more traffic on the website, more inquiries, people coming in with questions. So I think we're definitely, it's definitely making some progress. And the very gratifying thing is that everybody who's read it loves it. All the reviewers who've looked at it and said, this is great. So, it's sort of feedback that lets me know that I actually did a quality piece of work, which is, you never know that really for sure until you get people in the real world coming back to you and telling you that.
True.
And have you thought about addressing any other sectors like, I don't know exactly what you call it, but safe computing for the older generation? We have a lot of people that started into computing pretty late in life and use it strictly for social and informational reasons that I'm having a really hard time, at least with my family, getting them to understand some basic concepts at all.
Well, that's a funny thing. I actually got an email just last week, and the email went, I'm a 65-year-old grandmother, and at first I wasn't going to get this book because it said it was for teens, but then I got it, and I love it, and now my computer's all secure, and I'm browsing the web, and I know I have everything together. And, I think to a certain degree what's happening is the people who might have, otherwise looked for, a for dummies book or something, but they don't like that because they're not dummies. They're getting this one because they say, well, if it's good enough for teens, it's good enough for me, right? If obviously a book written for teens is something I'd be able to understand. And so
that's a good point.
There does definitely seem to be a substantial crossover to adults, which of course is delightful.
Right. The youth minister at our church, who is fairly non-technical, read it, and he was completely delighted with it.
Yeah, I've also given it to the youth group kids at my church, and they loved it too. Yeah, so it works. Once people get it in their hands and read it, they're enjoying it. It's an easy read. There's actually if you're interested, there's a quiz up on the alwaysuseprotection.com website now that I encourage people to try and try their hand at it. It looks easy, but I don't think anybody's gotten all 12 right yet, because it really does sort of play on some of the myths in security and some of the common knowledge that's actually incorrect. So, I go to signings now and I offer people like a chance to win a gift certificate if they get them all right, and nobody's won yet. I'd be glad to give away the certificates. I'd love to have some people getting it correct.
I haven't had a chance to read it yet. Do you cover operating systems other than Windows, or is it strictly Windows?
The computer protection part is strictly Windows because, let's face it, if you're running a Mac, you're not really too worried about viruses right now. That might change if a whole bunch of people start using Macs or Linux or so on. But, the other parts, which are the privacy and the identity theft and online safety issues, really do apply across different operating systems. Yeah, it's sort of common sense things in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, a lot of it's common sense. A lot of it is taking all the common sense and putting it together in one place. I mean, It sounds a little like Deborah's book, great, Windows.net secrets. These are sort of security secrets. The problem is that a lot of places, they talk about security and they simply say, use a firewall. And that's like telling someone drive safely. It doesn't mean anything unless you actually know what it means to drive safely and what are the individual practices that make up safe driving.
Right.
So, it's the same thing with computer security. You have to understand, what is that firewall really doing for you, and when might you need to open it, and how might you need to open it, and, where is it vulnerable, and things like that.
Do you think people need to start memorizing port numbers?
Oh, no, you can look those up.
Well, but yeah, you look them up, but where do you look them up? I mean,
it isn't. Well, I mean, that's where Google is useful. Every teen in the world knows that BattleNet's port 5192. Things like that.
Right. So yeah, I've been in that situation where I needed to find a port and couldn't find it, and it's just infuriating. Where you need to find, some of the more basic ones aren't just not out there anywhere easily found.
And this is actually another place where, I was mentioning earlier, I was apologizing to the world on behalf of software developers. I apologize on behalf of the world on behalf of game developers.
Right.
Because, there are a lot of games out there, online games, that they require impossible firewall settings. They say, oh, yeah, we'll just open 10,000 ports,
Right.
And they should be ashamed of themselves. And, Microsoft, any of you guys, if there are any Microsoft people who are working on games, shameful. Shame on you. It's terrible.
Well, what's the alternative for them? The game doesn't work.
No, the kudos are, for example, Blizzard.
Yeah.
One port. That's all you need. You don't need a bunch of ports. Maybe 10 ports or something if you need to do that for your multi-user. But that's it. That's it. You don't want to set up situations where you have multiple TCP and multiple UDP ports. Use one port. Use 2 ports.
You know what I've noticed? It's a lot of apps that use the Microsoft Direct Play system are the ones that, need 1 million ports open. Not to say anything bad about Direct Play. Direct Play was great when it was invented before everybody was behind NAT. But, for example, I have an old video game that I play that uses Direct Play, and I was reading, a site on, if you want to host this game and you're behind a NAT router, you have to, if you have this version of Direct Play, you need to open up these ports. If you have this version of Direct Play, you need to open up those ports. And it's like, it seems to be one of the cases where, Microsoft has made things easier for developers, which is great, but they've, in the long run, they've made it more difficult for the users.
And well, as I say, this is a case where, shame on Microsoft, because other people use DirectX and Direct Play, and they don't require 1 million ports. So it's really, it's not even Microsoft. It's the game developers' fault.
It's games in
for
general,
not thinking about this. And it's not all the games. It's just some of them. There are a lot of games that do understand and limit their port use and define it clearly and so on. But it's important because NAT is really important. It's one of the best protections that people have.
It's also one of the best ways to conserve IP addresses, which is deathly needed, or was deathly needed.
Right. And, let's face it, when you're at a home systems, which is who are buying the games, you've got a DSL, which is usually a dynamic IP anyway, and you have a home network. So, what you really want is, even if you have one computer, you want to use NAT to give you that firewall protection.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah.
So yes, all developers out there, if you're developing anything peer-to-peer, online gaming, anything like that, just one port. That's sort of like the just say no. That's our new thing. Just one port.
Right. Just write better protocols. You can write protocols that use one port.
Absolutely.
Done it.
Yeah, you did. WorldTrain.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. There's a little secret that only you and I know about. Nobody else in the developer world knows about WorldTrain. But that was just a single port. It was a simple protocol, but
a little bit ahead of its time, and its time probably still hasn't arrived yet.
Probably not. Probably not. Well, who's still out there? Let me take a poll.
Kathleen's still here.
Kathleen, Mark.
Yeah, I'm still here.
Mark, you still there?
Absolutely.
And Don left because the fires were killing him. Julie left because it started thundering and lightninging. and she had to go batten down the hatches. And Scott left a long time ago. And
there are fires going on?
Yeah, in Alaska, apparently. Fairbanks is forest fires.
Sounds like California.
That's what I said. Yeah, he said there's this big, thick smoke everywhere. And I said, it's kind of like living in L.A. Yep.
Yeah, that's what I tell everyone. Here in California, we have perfect weather. We pay for it in the form of wildfires, earthquakes, and all sorts of other natural disasters. But we have perfect weather.
Well, listen, guys, those of you that are left, I'd like to thank you for coming on the show and with this roundtable speakers lounge discussion. And let's do it again real soon.
All right. Always a pleasure, Carl.
Mark, you have any last-minute words of wisdom?
Hey, guess who I ran into in Montgomery, Alabama last week?
Who?
Tim Huckabee. He was there doing a user group talk.
Cool.
Yeah, it was awesome. He showed them a mapping program. I think the name of it was Keyhole. Have you heard about that?
No.
Isn't that the satellite one?
Yeah, that's it. I mean, he said, "Hey, Mark, what's your address up in Atlanta?" And I told him, and he zoomed in on my house. You could see the house, the yard. It was.
Isn't that like Terra Server, or is this a real satellite?
I'm not sure, how all of it works.
Huh.
I know the data looked a lot better in a city. I mean, you could really zoom in and see the streets in a city.
Wow.
It was higher resolution, but it was simply incredible.
Cool. Well, send me a link to that.
Oh, well, I'll have to get it from him, but that's something you guys need to talk about when you get him on again.
Okay, sure. Kathleen, you have any last-minute closing words?
No, it was great being on tonight. Thanks for having me, and I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Oh, you bet. Dan, always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. I don't know that I have anything to add at this point other than I hope to see people during my travels.
Yeah, I hope to see you when you come to Boston and hang out with us.
I have plenty of time in Boston because I'm going to be at the World Science Fiction Convention. So
yeah,
I'm going to actually be there for 4 or 5 days.
Awesome. Well, we'll definitely hook up. All right,
cool.
We'll see you guys later. So on behalf of Dan Appleman, Kathleen Dollard, Mark Dunn, Scott Hanselman, Pat Hynds, Don Kiely, Julie Lerman, Rory Blythe, Jeff Maciolik on the sound, and myself, I'd like to thank you for listening to this great episode of .NET Rocks and tuning in every week as you do. It's because of you that we do this, so keep rocking.